I have 3 questions for you. Do you avoid giving feedback because you are not sure how well it will be received? Do you sometimes receive feedback and end up feeling resentful or confused? Have you ever given feedback to somebody else and absolutely nothing has changed? I see some nodding heads. Well, in this session, we are going to share with you how you can change that. But just before that, who are we? So, I'm Alison Kai. I describe myself as a change agent. I have worked on business and IT projects for over 25 years. This is Rachel Gilmore, and she is a leadership and communications coach. Now, Rachel and I are collaborating on this talk because we both have a keen interest in a new communication technique called clean language. And for those of you at the conference last year, you will recall that Caitlin Walker introduced some of the techniques of clean language to you during her keynote speech. If you have not heard of clean language before, it is not an absence of swearing. Clean language was originally comprised of 8 simple questions and was originally used in therapy with people who were suffering with trauma. Fast forward a few years, and pioneers of clean language like Caitlin Walker have been further developing a clean toolkit and have introduced the concepts of clean language into the business world. The adoption of clean techniques has been particularly successful in teams that are practicing agile or lean principles. It seems that agile and clean techniques and principles make a good marriage. For this session, we can't teach you all the clean tools in the clean toolbox. There is just too much to learn in 30 minutes. But what we are going to do is focus on just one of the techniques, which is called the clean feedback model.
So I work with a clean feedback model all the time. I go into companies, and what I'm doing is helping them to really improve their collaboration, and doing it through advanced communication techniques and teaching them and getting them to learn how to really give feedback, really great feedback that people can action. What's sort of groundbreaking, what makes a difference with this technique is that what we do is we split the feedback messages into 3 parts. We split it into evidence, inference, and impact. Now, evidence, that's the stuff that we've seen or heard, what we can see and hear. It's the things that we can observe. This is the first part of our data, and it can't be challenged or debated. Inference are our thoughts. It's our interpretations, our assumptions that we've made. And this is the second piece of the data. And we have impact, and that's the effect that it's had on us. That's our third piece of data. Now, I don't want to talk about the model too much. I want to demonstrate it. So I thought we should kick in and let's use something live in the room. So what I'd like to have is a show of hands. So I'm wondering how many of you have noticed that Alison was reading from a sheet of paper. Okay. So when you notice Alison reading from a sheet of paper at a conference, what are you thinking? What assumptions are you making up about Alison? What have you inferred? And what was the impact on you? Let's have 2 or 3 examples from the audience. Yeah.
She's an amateur.
Ah. She's an amateur. And the impact on you of seeing that and thinking she's amateur, what's the impact on you?
I feel sorry for her.
Ah, he feels sorry for her. She's an amateur. He feels sorry for her. Let's have another one. Yes.
I've got the opposite. She's prepared, hence she's put effort into this.
Ah. She's prepared, she's put effort into this, and
I should listen.
I should listen to her. Let's have another one. Yeah.
She might be nervous at public speaking, so she might just need a bit of a shield and something.
Yeah, so she might be nervous about public speaking. So now we've heard from you, actually maybe we should check with Alison what's happening here. Let's find out about her perspective. So Alison, why did you decide to read from a sheet of paper?
I made the decision because I am very new to public speaking. And so the decision was to do this so that I would not forget my words. With the words written on this sheet of paper, I believe that I will feel safer, and that gives me the confidence to stand up here today.
Okay, so Alison made the decision to read from a sheet of paper because she's very new to public speaking and she was worried that she would forget her words. Then she gave us another one, didn't she? She also, with the reading from a sheet of paper, she believes she will be safer, and that gives her the confidence to be here in front of you today. So what we have here is Alison reading from the sheet of paper is our evidence. It's what we all saw and heard. It is our shared information. Then notice the different inferences, the different interpretations, and then the different impacts that we all had, and I'm sure there were more in the audience. And all those different inferences and impacts come from that same piece of data. And I'm wondering how many of you, now you've actually heard Alison's perspective, you've heard her inference and her impact, how many of you have actually changed your story about Alison and started to think about her differently? Some hands going up in the audience. And this is really the learning point or the critical message here, which is that we really need to find out what is going on with the other person. We need to find out their inference and their impacts before we give them any kind of feedback. We need to check in with them first, because this data integrity is everything. Because until that point, we haven't got enough information, we haven't got enough shared data to really give feedback effectively, to really engage in any kind of feedback process. And this is why feedback messages don't get through. It's because this kind of information, these kind of inference and impacts are not exchanged. When they are exchanged, it really starts to open up the discussion. You sort of get that genuine two-way street that we all really want to have. It makes it a shared process. It makes it jointly owned. And that is when you start to see changes in behaviour and you start to see people doing things differently. Alison.
Okay. So, having seen and heard all of that, we would like to give you the opportunity to try the clean feedback model out for yourselves. So I would like you to think of a time when someone in your team or at your workplace did something either collaborative, creative, or inspiring. I'm going to ask you to work in pairs. One of you is going to talk about that experience. The other is going to ask questions about that experience. And then together, you're going to separate out your example into the 3-part feedback model. Remember, evidence can only be something that you saw or heard. The inference is your interpretation or the meaning that you made of what you saw or heard in your example scenario. And the impact was how it affected you. Now, we have placed handouts on your chairs to guide you through this exercise. We will give you 5 minutes to find out as much as you can, And then we will ask some of you to share your examples with the room.
What the need was, what the KPIs were, what they actually really needed from her. And then she sort of
So yeah, I heard that you've agreed to feel very conscious now with being
for like 2 years. Now he knows he's leaving.
Okay, let's find out what we've got. Let's collate some examples. So I'm looking for somebody to share the situation, one sentence, the evidence, inference, and impact. What have you got?
So we've got an example where a coach was seen to spend a lot of time supporting and mentoring someone who needed help.
So a coach supporting and mentoring somebody who needed a lot of help.
Yep.
That's your situation, yeah?
So for the evidence we put down that we could see the person who needed the help, you could see visibly that they were stuck, that they were stressed, frustrated.
They were stuck, they were stressed, and they were frustrated.
And this coach, visibly told them that they would help them, that they would, find time to support them.
Okay, so you heard the coach say that they would find time to help them?
Yep.
And that was your evidence, and what did you infer from that?
The inference was both positive and negative. So for the person who needed the help, one thought was this could be career limiting for them. For the person who was offering the help, on the first hand, they've exposed them. So in a way, that seems a negative thing, but also it was kind of sort of done from a place of respect and with empathy. So they've said, look, you have this, but I'll help you address it.
So you heard them speaking and offering. You heard them speaking, offering the help, but the impacts could be that it was career limiting, and it could be exposing. Yeah, great. Let's have another example.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so we have a graduate, a new graduate that's joined and has been asked to solve some problems.
Mm-hmm.
And basically been looking at implementing the solution, and she was impressed on how he was able to kind of patiently look at the problem and look at solutions, and also encourage sort of future thoughts on how to solve these problems in the future.
So impressed, and how could patiently solve and deal with the problems, and the impact on you?
So there was a sort of increased confidence in him, and
increased confidence in him.
And trust.
And impressed. And what did you see and hear that made you impressed?
Sort of the non-judgmental sort of beliefs that he had.
Non-judgmental beliefs. And what did you see and hear that made you think you had non-judgmental beliefs? What did you see or hear?
just encouragement, suggestions,
So
very
when,
calm.
And when he was encouraging and suggestions and calm, what did you notice about him when he was calm?
He's just interested in helping, and he had no other desire, I don't think, other than that.
And what did he do
Just
to
very
show?
direct eye contact.
Direct eye contact.
Yeah.
Evidence.
To show that he was listening. That's the evidence here, isn't it?
Mhm.
Direct eye contact showed that he was listening. Then that you could then be impressed in his problem solving, and that made you more confident in them. Yeah. Should we have one more?
One more, yeah.
One more.
The situation was running a workshop with a new group of people
Yeah.
and an icebreaker to kick it off.
Yeah.
The evidence I saw in running the icebreaker was directive by the coach, a brief explanation but no clarification.
So you heard a brief explanation, but direction,
Yeah.
a brief explanation. What did you infer from that?
There was uncertainty amongst the group
Uncertainty amongst the group, and the impact?
I was very proud because running those icebreakers is something that's not easy to do as a coach, but a little concerned
Yeah.
about the impression on some
Yeah.
of the stakeholders who are quite senior and new to the stuff.
Yeah. So you were proud and also a bit concerned
Yes.
because you're new to this stuff. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks to those people who offered those examples. Now, I think what happens here, what we often find, and I think we all experienced it a little bit here, and I'm wondering if why there was some hesitance in offering some of the solutions forward, because what we often find with this clean feedback model, especially when we're sort of starting with it, is that people often confuse evidence for inferences. And what's really interesting is if we really start to challenge ourselves to focus on the evidence, and I don't know if you heard the question I was asking, what did you see or hear that made you think that? That's the evidence, that's the question you ask to find out evidence. So when we challenge ourselves to focus on the evidence by asking the question, what did you see or hear? Then something interesting happens, because then we start to challenge our own assumptions, our own inferences about what's happening. And then we start to change our own thinking and behaviour. So in summary, we've told you a tiny bit about clean language and where it comes from, and that it's being used in the clean and agile community. We've shared a little part here of the clean feedback model, a little part of the clean toolbox of techniques. And what we've done here is we've separated out evidence, inference, and impact. We've used it live in the room. You've had an opportunity to try it out on your own examples. And you will have noticed that when data is checked out, and when data is checked out like that, and when data is shared, like you've just done, that the feedback is far more effective. Because remember, data integrity is everything. And now, you'll go and give feedback differently.
So I started this talk with 3 questions. I'd like to leave you with 3 questions. My first question is, now, knowing the feedback model, what difference does that make to you? My second question, what are you now going to do differently? And for my third question, how are you going to apply this in your workplace? We will be in the breakout room next door for the rest of the day, so please come and tell us your answers. We would love to hear your feedback. Thank you.